Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Michael Kahn, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Melby Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Samson, Maris, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I'll hand over to whoever is in Google and Discord so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Situation.
I just got the end of that. Did you say double slit?
Yeah. It's a fascinating situation. I suppose when things are when you don't have the information, that's why I find it important to listen and keep quiet sometimes so you can be able to look it up. Because I won't heard about this stuff really. You don't hear this. Globers don't talk about it really. Other things that you can learn from flat earthers is quite astonishing in my take.
I mean, fair enough. If you want to link how they use information in the case of the double slit, which path it's travelling through, and translate that into your own life and say, well, information, which any information is information, right? So important to have the information. True.
Yeah. Well, yeah, well, not all flat earthers, I would say, but it's like they're more open to like giving you to discuss information that I find intriguing.
Indeed. Hello, 10th and Neil.
Hello.
Good morning. Can I throw my hat into this conversation?
Did you check out that clip?
No. I just said play on words.
Yeah, feel free.
No, I'm just
Hey, Neil,
joking.
Go ahead. Just real quick, Neil, I wanted to kind of give you a Wi-Fi high five for how you broke the step by step that you did on the panel, describing how the sextant works and only can work on a flat plane. That was pretty smooth, man.
Not me, that's 10th man.
I learned.
Yeah, I know. That's what I said.
You said
I
Neil,
said 10th
but yeah.
man. It was amazing, man. Got to give you a Wi-Fi high five.
Oh, Wi-Fi.
I'll take the credit.
Yeah, everything I know, it came from Neil.
Neil, oh, really? Nice. Oh, okay. I get it.
Adam.
So what stood out to you about it?
Well, I like how what stood out really is the production of how the slides went with your wording as well. So not only were you just, telling it, right? Telling your truths, but I don't know if it was Nathan doing the slide or somebody was, but as you did, you gave the images with it that, can help some see it a little better. And that's what stood out to me is the production, how you guys did that.
I agree. The production made it, really, didn't it?
Yes,
For me.
it really did.
No, it's 10th man.
Absolutely.
It's 10th man's slides, 10th man's info. Having a bit of spit and polish on it with a nice bit of production doesn't make it anything other than what it is. Good information.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
give my
I agree.
I give my producer all the credit.
By the way, I like that little trim out you did of Cyman Dan. That's hysterical.
You mean the most recent short video, the less than 60-second one?
Absolutely. The guy says magic.
Yeah, it goes. They cite the second law of thermodynamics for why we can't have an atmosphere next to a vacuum because of entropy. End quote. His response, well, because of pseudo magic? No, because of the second law of thermodynamics. It was just explained to you like 5 seconds ago, is what I'd have said to him.
Not if you're really not looking for the answer, you wouldn't say that.
In that short edit, it doesn't have the full context, or even in any of the subsequent smaller edits, or smaller than the original, if you will, because they do mention gravity. Now, contextually, it didn't work with my video, so I'll just hack that shit out, because I'm not going to obviously preface everything they've said, because they've peppered what they've said with gravity, and go into why gravity is not a force, how you can think of it as a force, but it's actually not a force, it's working in a area that doesn't exist. It's like none of that needs contextualizing, because I've got plenty of videos that are also short and contextual and nice and concise that I can put out about gravity. That's no issue. But for that particular context, I just left it without it. Regardless, him having literally our argument put to him was quite epic. Admittedly, with a bit of misrepresentation by Simon Dan. So we ask, how can you have gas pressure without a container? Now, his expansion on that, to a certain extent, I don't mind, other than atmosphere. It's like, next to atmosphere, it's like, well, I suppose in this context, when you're putting it to the BBC astrophysicist, I've got to accept that you're both going to beg the question of sphere-shaped air. That's part of your religion. And how can we have sphere-shaped air next to a vacuum? I suppose I'll let it slide.
Sphere-shaped air.
I was thinking about that. We just would say that word and not even think of what it meant. That's how indoctrinated in this we all have been.
Yeah. When people claim it's subliminal messaging, then they see globes in cartoons or in a TV production on their set. You don't appreciate that that's down to, it's self-perpetuating. It's not necessary to do or tell that person to do that or incentivize them to do that. It's obviously got to be reinforced constantly, but it's doing it by itself. People are talking about it. It's come to you at your birth from your parents who've already been indoctrinated, and now it just kind of flows. Well, we're like a twig being shoved in that bicycle wheel.
What do you mean there's no Santa?
What do you mean there's no globe?
Well, there's a clause with the Santa. There's a
Well,
void with the globe.
it's not the first time that comparison's
Where's your
been made, and I'm
geometric?
sure it won't be the last. But yeah, Santa Claus is often compared to a globe belief. It's globe belief for adults. Or Santa Claus is the equivalent, and globe belief is Santa for adults. There we go.
It's for you, heretic.
Yeah, it sure is.
I didn't.
That's,
Yeah.
that's a good. Go ahead.
I didn't catch what you said, but carry on.
No, that's a good point with Santa Claus. I kind of want I have a little way I go about it now. When they say no one claims to see the geometric horizon, but it's there. Well, no one claims to meet Santa Claus, but the North Pole is there.
Nathan, you said something the other day that cracked me up. I don't know who you were berating, but you said you fell off the tree and hit every branch on the way down.
Yeah, insert
I was
insult
dying.
tree. So, ugly tree, dumb tree, and you hit every branch on the way down. So that particular guy fell off the dumb tree and hit every branch on the way down.
Yeah, did you guys get my pun when I heard that?
Your plum?
My pun.
What was it?
He got twiggered.
Yeah,
Triggered, yeah, I
yeah,
did.
that's what made me laugh even harder. He got twiggered.
Hey, John.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Got no reply from Adam, though.
Can you hear me?
No, maybe. I thought
Yeah.
you didn't hear me.
No, I did. I was just being defensive of Santa.
Oh, I see.
So, called you a heretic.
I'm quite upfront with my kids about Santa. Like, as soon as I thought about the Easter Bunny, everything became a lot easier with Santa. Because it's not like it's a... I don't know about in the States, but certainly here, we don't go around pretending that the Easter Bunny's actually real. Same goes for the Tooth Fairy. Now, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe some parents here do say the Tooth Fairy's real. But, you know, we just explain how it's pretend. And once you've explained that once, you can then almost go about it as though you are pretending it's real, because you are pretending it's real, but they know you're pretending it's real. And they get to pretend it's real. My kids, that is.
Did you ever hear Mary Mom break that down? She was devastated when she found out there was no Santa Claus. So she's upfront with her kids, and so am I, because I'm not giving the credit for all these gifts that I bought my children to some fat man in a red suit. I broke my ass to get this money to buy you these gifts. Santa Claus. Daddy, that's who.
My wife heard you say that, and now I don't know if it's a direct result of that, I won't speak for her, but she kind of has taken that on board and spins it into, you'll get to be Santa when you're older, like I'm being Santa now, although she doesn't say that bit.
Nice.
What's the point in being good all year then?
Because I'm Santa, and you can be damn sure I'll know about it.
Well, all the best lies aren't falsifiable.
All the best lies are falsifiable. What do you mean?
Are not.
Oh,
All the best lies are not.
I see. Yes, that would be something that makes me smile and I can agree with. All the best lies are not falsifiable. For example, well, of course, gravitational accretion will give rise to black holes. Well, how can I experience this? Well, no, it's being detailed how it happens in pseudo-Riemannian force-based geometry. And here it is, happening in this mathematics. And that relates to your world, does it? Where can I see it? Here in the maths. Oh, right. Oh, well, that's a great lie, isn't it? So I can't go to pseudo force space to see if this is real then? Oh, no. No, pseudo force space only exists in the maths. It is just the maths. It's the geometry of it. And that's where the assertion lies. Yeah, great lies.
There was a Glober in the chat that offered like £10,000 if anybody could explain gyroscopic drift without the Earth moving. And I just made up some story, and I was like, there's your explanation if you're that desperate for it.
Hold on. Gyroscopic drift. Well, I'm slightly disappointed in you there, John. So you've fallen victim to a burden of proof reversal fallacy. Do gyroscopes drift, John?
Ring laser gyro drift.
Sorry, does any gyro, ring laser or otherwise, drift? Is that one of the inherent properties of gyroscopes? Wow, I'm shocked to hear this. Can you explain this inherent drifting property of a gyroscope to me? Because I'm slightly confused. I was under the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, that is primarily one of the antitheses of their inherent properties. A gyroscope's inherent property is that it doesn't drift. Am I not seeing something here? Am I confused?
Well, it has a precession to it, but we don't know the cause of that precession.
Sorry, does it?
Yeah.
You're saying one of the inherent properties of gyroscopes is that they precess. That's news to me. My understanding, John, is that they don't drift, that they are fixed in space, as in they spin and don't drift. In other words, if you've got a bicycle wheel spinning with a gyroscopic motion on the end of your finger, and you move your finger up and down in a horizontal motion, the bicycle wheel will pretty much remain spinning exactly as it is as you move your finger around it. In other words, it's remaining fixed in terms of its spin in space, not drifting, not precessing. That's one of the useful features of gyroscopes, and predominantly with the reason why they use them. But you're telling me they drift, and that's an inherent property. That's news to me. I don't really understand that. Unless, of course, you're asserting that the cage the gyroscope's in is drifting because Earth is claimed to be turning beneath it now, because that's a completely different claim altogether.
No, I'm saying like ring legs or gyros show a deviation, but they don't want to accept that the deviation isn't because the Earth's turning underneath.
Number one, when have you been shown this deviation in an optical gyroscope to your satisfaction that it is actually, number one, not just faulty, and number two, actually doing it at all? When have you have this demonstrated to you? Next question. When have you ever looked at, handled, or been in any presence of a ring laser gyroscope?
I was at work. I didn't get to operate it, though.
Okay, I'm slightly taken aback by. So you have actually been in the presence of a ring laser gyroscope. Okay, what is your understanding of how a ring laser gyroscope or a fiber optic gyroscope operates?
The light passes back and forth over, I think, a single plane, and any motion. I'm not really exactly sure.
It's Sagnet effect.
So, not exactly sure. I mean, I can describe a gyroscope really easily. I did it earlier with a bicycle wheel, right? That's gyroscopic motion. Really easy to describe.
Right. Well, yeah, they say the Sagnac effect, but I don't really know what the Sagnac effect is. It's just when something changes direction, it seems as if it takes light. I guess spin affects. I don't know.
Okie dokie. So the Sagnac effect would be a man-made, as we discussed on a previous show, a man-made device or a synthetic effect created by man, right? I mean, a gyroscope, you could equally argue the same.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, it's a man-made device, and there's an effect within that. Yeah.
Right. So we're not going to be sciencing this drift. We're not going to be too concerned about what caused it. A man-made. It's a synthetic effect. So what causes this effect in this man-made device? That would be to say, I want to know the cause of the effect. Well, that sits in the realm of technology as opposed to the realm of the physical and natural world that we inhabit. Would you not agree?
The wiki description fits it quite nicely. The Sagnac effect, also called Sagnac interference, named after French physicist Georges Sagnac, is a phenomenon encountered in interferometry that is elicited by a rotation. The Sagnac effect manifests itself in a setup called a ring interferometer.
Okay.
So,
But this is technology, though. Would you not agree, Adam?
The Sagnac effect manifests itself in a setup called a ring interferometer.
Right, a man-made instrument manifests this effect. So to study the effect inside this man-made instrument, it would firmly fall in the bracket of category of technology, not science. So in terms of when you're being asked about explaining the drift in a man-made phenomena, That's a technology question. It has no bearing on the physical and natural world. None.
Well, that's why I said all the best lies are unfalsifiable. You know, so I just made up an unfalsifiable lie and said I want my 10,000 pounds. You know,
I see. I mean, as much as I'd like £10,000, I'm very poor. I'd also prefer that the person making a positive assertion in that regard gets the order of their assertion correct, which is, I assert Earth turns. I assert that I can prove Earth turns because we can see 15 degrees an hour deviation in gyroscopic motion. Here is my 15 degrees an hour deviation in gyroscopic motion, therefore Earth is turning. Now that, as a claim, is an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. Certainly doesn't sit inside the bracket of phenomena we can study to understand more about the nature of our existence. It also affirms the consequent. So if my fundy belief in Earth turn, then man-made device, therefore fundy belief in Earth turn. That's what you've actually got.
yeah, it was a crap argument. I was just saying, like, you know, if you just want a story made up and you'll give somebody $10,000 for it, what's that say about you?
I don't know. I've never really delved too deeply into the psychology of people's, thoughts and reasonings behind wanting to lay down those sorts of bets. It never really. I should ask Anthony because he gets sucked into them.
You're dealing with the same people who say levels curved.
Breaking up. Try again, 10th.
Who is?
You're breaking up.
Oh, yeah, I say you're dealing with the same people. Hello?
Yes, we heard that
Check.
bit twice. Dealing with the same people we got.
All right. You're dealing with the same people who say level is curved.
Yeah, double-speaking anti-flat earthers. That's correct. So, with them in mind, where this becomes useful, to speak to John's point specifically, is where they deny their own claim because they're an anti-flat earther. So Earth claims we see things drift because Earth's turning beneath them. We see things drift, meaning we're attached to something turning as we see things not attached drifting. That's the claim that Earth has. It's called Coriolis deviation. Not actual deflection observed from a non-inertial turning reference frame as you turn beneath something not attached in the inertial reference frame. That's Coriolis, and it's claimed globe is the turning reference frame. You're attached to it, seeing things drift away. Not because they fly away, but because you turn beneath them. So it's not actual deflection. That's the claim. They then tell us, that's not our claim. We don't claim things drift away. We claim it all spins, because I'm going to beg the question of spin, and the atmosphere, sphere-shaped air, spins at the exact same rate, getting ever faster as you go up in altitude, violating the first law of thermodynamics. They don't add that bit. But that's what they do. They beg the question and deny their own claim that, like we're arguing about, there's claimed to be Earth turning beneath a ring laser gyro, fiber optic gyro. So, okay, your claim, which should have come first, is that Earth spins, and your claim comes with a claim to be proof of it with a fiber optic gyro. Okay, how does the fiber optic gyro demonstrate that Earth's turning beneath? Well, I assume it's the cause of the effect. Oh, so you've pigeonholed it into something it isn't. You studied a bit of technology after an assumption, and now you're making it sound like science. You've studied the cause of a phenomena. All right, that sounds like science, doesn't it? It isn't, as we discussed. It's technology, but we use it, or I use it, or I was trained to use it by Quantum Eraser to tie them to their actual claim. So, globe denier or flat earth, anti-flat earther, whatever you want to call them, globe believer that's gone bad, that person, when they deny that Earth turns beneath things to cause drift, Coriolis effect, and say that Earth and atmosphere spin together, you can take them to something like the gyroscope and say, okay, how does this claim of the gyroscope work? Coriolis would suggest that Earth is turning beneath the fixed frame of the gyro to cause it to drift in its cage to the tune of 15 degrees an hour. That's Earth turning beneath the fixed frame of the gyro. So because the gyro's spinning in a relatively fixed motion and the cage is attached to Earth, you see it seemed to precess because the cage has moved as the Earth turned underneath the fixed frame of the gyro. That's Earth turning underneath stuff then. as they continue to babble on about Earth and atmosphere travel together when they assume Earth spinning. I assume Earth spinning, and I assume there's no effect Earth and atmosphere move as one. It's like, well, then you're denying the claim of Coriolis, which assumes Earth turns underneath to cause deflection. So that's how you tie them to their claim, by pointing out what the pendulum or the gyroscope or the bullet or the football or any of the other claims that make it obvious and plain that the sphere Earth comes with a claim that things are going to drift away because you're turning beneath them. But because we don't observe it, they've got to deny it if they're an anti-flat earther. So that's, as I say, useful to actually tie them down to their claim. Here you go. Here's a gyro. It says Earth turns beneath the gyro. What's that? They turn together? Well, then there wouldn't be any precession. That's the antithesis of what Coriolis is supposed to demonstrate. Is you turn beneath stuff, you see them drift away. We don't, because we don't have Coriolis effect. We're not spinning.
I get your drift.
Well, that's good to know.
That's funny. Well,
Go, Don, go. You can do it.
if I may, real quick, the ring laser gyroscope actually has plasma in it. Now, when I look into plasma being diamagnetic or affected by any electromagnetic fields, the equations do not permit a solution, i.e., the paradox can't be resolved. Now, there's claims saying it doesn't. There's claims saying it does. So.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Father of a Stolen Child, Neil, Adam Meakin, 10th Man, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. Feedback.
Hello.
Semi-enthusiastic start to the show. I can't complain. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No, it's over there, as Arwen says, just a beautiful light in the sky.
Shane Bryan's not here. He'd start telling us how we've lost the distance to the sun. We've lost the measured two-way. Oh, Arwen just on cue. Speed of light. That's all gone to the wayside. Almost everything we cover in housekeeping's been debunked by the Black Swan, I'm starting to realise. Had we all come to the same conclusion?
Hello, guys.
Well, go ahead.
Every globe claim begs the question of a globe to begin with. So yeah, if you don't have a radius, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I've been saying it for a while. I originally heard it first stated by Validation Boy, but I later found out he got it from Quantum Eraser. But absolutely every single globe Earth claim, including in this instance, the distance to the sun, is based on an R value. So you assume Earth's a sphere when you move forward and describe the distance to the sun in the heliocentric model. The clue being, in the heliocentric model, obviously that's got a sphere-shaped Earth, so obviously you're assuming Earth's a sphere. It's always going to start with that begging the question fallacy, and that begging the question fallacy is the R value. And we've debunked it with the black swan. So there's no way you can get an R value. You can't measure Earth as sphere. You can't derive R values from geometric horizons. Any evidence of the R value?
It's a radial world. It's a radial galaxy, actually. Everything is radial.
Debunked by the black swan.
Yeah, no evidence because it only exists in the math and calculations of a presupposition that you live on the ball.
What about a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of an R-based sphere?
One goes with the other. If you don't have a sphere with an R, then where are you going to get that from?
Okay, again, Shane Bryan's not here, but what about scientific evidence of gravity? Also debunked by
This question's been pulling on me for a while, but there is no scientific evidence of gravity.
Well, there's no mathematical evidence either. You can't have M1 attracted to the center of M2 if you don't have a radial value of M2. And you can't say that Einsteinian gravity is showing how mass in a universe with one mass in it. Well, you lost your M1 value with the radius of Earth there as well.
So 4 for 4 so far. There's no Earth sphere radius value, therefore there is no geometric horizon to give you Earth curve. There is no derivation of R. There is no distance to the sun. There is no gravity. Without any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics.
Not yet.
Well, it turns out that there's this magic speed.
Aren't those disciplines more concerned with making up reasons why it doesn't match the heliocentric model and making up excuses for it?
It's a very lucrative endeavor.
What is the magic speed?
Whatever you want it to be, Arwin. It's just abstract.
Good answer.
The magic speed was Neil deGrasse Tyson describing why every single quote-unquote crater, which automatically begs the question of a sphere with impact, anyway, why they're all seemingly at 90 degrees to the surface of the moon that we can see. Now, with their rock-shaped sphere in a vacuum, you've got to have an explanation for that, right? They should have come in at all sorts of angles if they've been the very nature of their backstory to how it was formed in the first place is debris that was supposed to be cast off from a planetary collision with Theia and the fledgling Earth, leaving the debris to coalesce into the moon. It's like the entire thing has been created from crap that's pseudo force-based gravitational accretion into one little sphere. Okay, so it's nothing but impacts then, but yet they're all 90 degrees to what we can see. Well, apparently there's a magic speed.
Okay, that's interesting. So what is the numerical value of this magic speed in the proposed model?
3 AU. Arwinian.
That's not a speed.
It is if I want it to be.
No.
Yeah. AU is not a speed, but I can think of it as a speed.
So no numerical value then?
So no single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics then?
Have you noticed, not to jump in on Arwen, because I wanted him to continue. I don't know where he's going with it, but have you noticed that everything's moving towards the astrophysics and all this made up math stuff and stuff that they can't prove, but it's become more predominant in the last few years rather than real science?
I don't know how long that's taken. if Simon Dan's anything to go by, it's in our educational history. Mine, I mean, I'm 40, because he asked me a physics question in the name of the email, but it wasn't a physics question, it was a maths question.
Dude, he would know physics when it hit them in the face. He only knows math.
Physical. Now, detailing an abstract description of something physical doesn't make it physics. That's still abstract descriptions within mathematics. So maths. The period, I think he asked me for something like the period of a 5 hertz wave. That's what he asked me. That's maths. Oh, it's got a physical wave. Is there? Where? No, there isn't. Just conjured it out of nothing and then gave me a question about it. There's nothing physical in this, it's mathematics. But they want the transition because they assert our physical world with the abstract world of mathematics to make it seem real in the mind's eye of everyone listening to it, like gravity. Detailing pseudo force-space bending by way of the uneven distribution of mass. Oh, mass. Oh, so physical stuff then. No, this doesn't happen in reality. It happens in pseudo force-space. Length, breadth, depth, and time. Space-time. It happens in a place that isn't real. Space-time. Are you existing in space-time? No. Am I existing? No, I'm not in space-time. No, that's a pseudo-geometry that they've invented to try and explain some of the stuff that's in the sky. Well, explanations for it? All right. My understanding was when you deal with physics and you explain something, you actually test by experiment and validate cause. Oh, they don't do any of that. They do a bit of maths, don't they? Well, let's call that physics. Let's put a load of maths into physics questions at GCSE level. And then children will think that maths is physics. So long as you're talking about something physical, even if you've abstractly conjured it out of nothing, never is to be existing or hasn't ever been in existence, you can still say I'm describing it as being physical though, so it's physics. Wrong. No, very few people understand the difference between maths and physics. That's why you have red rhetoric, famously or infamously, saying math is reality. No, math is abstract. You clown.
This is where lately I've been catching the nuances of that argument. If you're not really listening carefully, you miss it. But it ends up when you're debating someone, or say Adam reads the full text of what someone sends over as a citation, and cherry picks. It's really, they modeled it. They modeled it this way, but it's not tested. It's not proven. So they say, well, we modeled it, and this is the closest we got. This is the average. So again, it's just guesswork, but it's mainly a model.
Only there was a good
I can
quote about.
come in here.
Go ahead.
Cool. This actually reminds me of a video of Veritasium that I saw a couple of days ago, where he had this bit with this professor, and this professor was basically arguing with him, saying that what he was testing is not matching up with the maths. So the professor said it's not going to work, and it's not really what he thinks it is. But whereas he actually went out and did the test himself, and then they redid the tests. But so eventually the professor had to concede. But I mean, it just shows the I think it's arrogance from their side. And they had the whole panel was there. It was what's the guy's name? Bill Nye, and Neil deGrasse was also there against the Veritasium guy, saying that it's not going to work out. Math doesn't add up. Blah blah blah. But yeah, it just speaks to exactly what you're saying.
Yep, may not work in the abstract world, but there we go. That's not physics. And none of the people you listed are dealing in physics. They're astrophysicists. No, they're pseudoscientists. They're not dealing in the physical and natural world. They're not testing by experiment. They're not formulating valid hypotheses. They're not observing, they're observing natural phenomena. That's it. They got step one of the scientific method. That's it. That's all they got. First step, observe phenomena. Then make up a story. Do some maths.
It's funny that he said that Neil deGrasse Tyson said, if I heard it right, the math doesn't add up. So if the math doesn't add up, then it can't be real to them versus actual testing. But when has the math ever added up for them on other issues? Like the horizon, the geometric distance, the limitations on it. The math doesn't add up, Neil deGrasse Tyson. How about there? Let's go there.
Or entropy. Here's the space. Oh, what's that? The gas isn't filling it. Why? Well, because we've got this not actual force that you can think of as a force, but is literally not a force. Well, that holds gas here, even though, mathematically speaking, it has absolutely no effect whatsoever on entropy. Entropy and gravity, completely mutually exclusive of each other. Makes no difference. You can have gravity, both Newtonian and Einsteinian, at full effect, and it won't make any difference to an entropic effect. You'll still have an entropy increase. Gas will still fill space, violating their maths of space. Because gas would fill it, would all be dead. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Well, you're in trouble if you're going to assert atmospheric law, aren't you?
What, assume sphere-shaped air? Assume that air will arbitrarily take the shape of a marble that it's clinging to in a massive space that it's not filling in violation of natural law. Shout out to Matthew Eastman, who's joined as a hyena. How? Thank you very much.
Well, you don't have the marble anymore in that assertion either.
The marble being the blue marble. Explain what you mean you don't have the marble.
Well, you know, when they assert atmospheric law and say that, you know, there's a force pushing these layers of gas down, you know, that's based on the radius. You don't have the marble anymore. You don't have the sphere anymore to assert that there's an atmosphere.
Good point. It's an oxymoron to begin with, though. Gas takes the shape of its container, doesn't arbitrarily form a sphere. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Axial rotation's measured in radians. Need a radius for that too.
1st Jan 2020, QE pointed out that the black swan is the black plague for the globe. 18, 19 months later, that's exactly what's happened. Every single question that we ask in housekeeping can be debunked with the black swan. You need an R value for everything, Globers. It's dead. The game is over. Devastating. Must be very hard for them at the moment. They hate me. They lose a lot of sleep. They tell me all the time in the comments when they're there for hours and hours and hours in my videos. They watch more of my videos now than I do. Often I'm editing when there's my video on. So they're watching more of my content than I do. Telling me how it's dying sometimes. It's very amusing.
Well, it's good that they've been so respectful to flat earthers this whole time that, you know, that turned out that they were wrong. That should be easy for them to deal with since they've been so respectful and polite.
Yeah, that tone of sarcasm, I'm going to point out to the audience that if you're a newbie and you come here and you just happen to tune in when I'm absolutely tearing a strip off a fundamentalist religious zealot with a globe belief, it might come across as I'm actually quite brutal. But based on the fact that John has just detailed how thoroughly gentle they are with us, what with us being the minority and, you know, generally ridiculed by standard practice, that's how gentle and kind they've been. They've appreciated that, and they've, you know, taken that into consideration when they've dealt with us, haven't they? They haven't just lost arguments, double spoke away around everything we put to them, and then told us that we're idiots even when they lose. No, they haven't done that. They've been very gracious, haven't they? Yeah, that's why we're really, really vicious when you lose. We really like to rub it in.
Well, I can't believe it's socially acceptable the way it is. It's kind of creepy.
I've been pondering that recently too. I wonder why you've been pondering that, but normally there's an influencer. Maybe not. Great minds and all that. We'll just assume that we're both geniuses and therefore think alike. But yeah, exactly. You've got to wonder how someone can come across some of the material you see on the opposing side that is basically just bullying. And you go, this definitely sits outside of the YouTube regulations. I know what they are. I read them regularly. I want to stay in business, so to speak. I want to keep my income. So I want to stay on the right side of YouTube. But that means I know when our opponents on the flat earth or anti-flat earth side really are breaking those rules quite badly. You think, I wonder how long they'll get away with that. Because they're being promoted for it at the moment, and it's interesting. They're hot. Anti-flat earth's hot right now. If you want to make a profit, I would suggest going over to that side of the argument, because it's definitely hot right now. But it also stands in direct violation of a lot of the community guidelines, what they do. Now, maybe they're unaware of that. I don't know if they are aware or not, but, I could give at least half a dozen examples just off the top of my head. I won't.
If only they had R. Geometric horizon would block the bottom of boats and buildings and not be beyond its geometric limitations. And we would all know it. The black swan would not even exist if only they had R.
And they must have R. They must be acquirable. There's Earth as a sphere in a cartoon image with me in space. Well, that's Earth curve. That's the geometric horizon that you're seeing right there. That's the Earth curve edge that's blocking what's behind it. That's what the Earth curve maths would assert, that you've got whatever, 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet from this altitude would be how much Earth curve edge? Yeah? That's the geometric horizon right there. So you've got to have it to derive R from it. It's the premise for the religion. Earth with a sphere edge. And if you haven't got one, then Earth as a globe dies. It must have one. If we're on a sphere, it would be obvious. It isn't because we aren't. That's why they've had to hijack perspective. Shout out to Retro Bill. He says, shout out to Nathan for all the hard work you put into this excellent channel. On that note, Retro Bill, I was up till gone midnight, maybe 1 o'clock, and then spent a couple of hours unwinding, only to be woken up about 2 hours later by the kids. That's why I sound drunk, if anyone's wondering why I'm slightly slurring my words. It's because of a couple of hours sleep. I don't drink. But thank you for the appreciation, Retro. Today, I definitely do appreciate it.
Hey, Nathan, if we're done with housekeeping, can you go to Master B? I posted a response I got yesterday from a baller. I want to see what you guys think about it.
Can I just
Is it a
say
baller
something
or
real quick before
anti-flat
you do?
earther?
Hold on, let's just
I'm not sure.
We'll go to that in a second, 10th. I will bring it up while FEEG puts his 2 pennyworth in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention in relation to axial rotation and what you guys were speaking about earlier, gyroscopic precession. Isn't one of their claims precession of the equinoxes, right? Which, in effect, we should observe like a shift in the night sky, and that doesn't happen. And they say it's over, I don't know, is it 1 degree per century or something? And we haven't observed that, right?
They've put it in a timeline that's unqualifiable, but that's another Coriolis claim in terms of the drift and precession of the lights in the sky. That's all claimed to be one cause, just Earth turning beneath them.
Well, as far as the wobble to the, I don't know, the sky, I guess there is a slight deviation that the stars move about within their circuits, but that doesn't, it'd be affirming the consequence to assert that's, proof of Earth spin.
But Polaris is fixed in the sky, isn't it?
Say that again.
I'm saying Polaris, the North Star, is fixed in the sky, isn't it?
It's got a tiny amount of movement, but yeah, to all intents and purposes, it's fixed in its position.
Well, if it was Earth spin, we would see drift. We don't see drift, so it's not Earth spin. It's pretty simple.
Indeed. Okay, I'm going to come to your comment after I just shout out this next super chat. Think outside the container. Great screen name. Says, Glober YouTubers, I'm going to correct you and say anti-flat earthers. Anti-flat earth YouTubers engage in targeted harassment, end quote. Yeah, I think that would be the most YouTube terms of service-esque description. Think outside the container. There we go. Like I say, quite the contrary to what you'd expect with other targeted harassment. They are very much promoted for doing it, and more power to them as YouTubers. I wish them every success. Anyway, 10th man. I'm going to read out your comment, give my comments, and then you can fire. I suppose I shouldn't really take your thunder as you've posted it to me. I'll just read it. If you can't understand why flight times on a rotating Earth are roughly equal, travelling east and west, let me try to explain. Imagine you are at the back end of a moving train and I am at the front. The train is is a mile long. We start walking towards the middle of the train at the same time and at the same speed. I walk half a mile to the middle. You walk half a mile to the middle. We reach the middle of the train at exactly the same time. The speed of the train is irrelevant, and the train, if you're on it, is irrelevant because Coriolis is observed as you turn beneath something not attached. So detailing what happens in the ball, because you're standing on the ball thrown over the roundabout. No, you're not standing on the ball thrown over the roundabout, walking towards the top of the ball as someone walks on the other side towards the top of the ball as it flies over a roundabout for you to see it drifting. Yeah, that's sod all to do with Coriolis. This is your fairly atypical. I can't show Earth turning underneath stuff, so I'm going to detail why we won't see the effect. If you can't understand why flight on a rotating Earth are roughly equal, hold on. If we're observing Coriolis effect on a turning Earth, I'd look up at that plane and see it drifting, because I'm turning beneath it, because that's what's claimed to happen. So I'm turning beneath aeroplanes because there's Coriolis effect for anything not attached, like an aeroplane. And that would shorten flight times. No, he goes on to tell us how we won't have shortened flight times, right, 10th? And how we won't see this effect by detailing something that's occurring in the inertial reference frame when Coriolis takes place from the non-inertial reference frame. I hope I haven't over-summarised it when it's your point. Go ahead, 10th.
No, I'm glad you did what you did because I caught it right away. It's rather than addressing the question, he goes and diverts to a train and people walking from one end to another on a 1 mile long train. And then, so it's like, wait a minute, go back to my question, go back to Coriolis, go back to shortened flight times. Why did you just move it to some argument that you have to bring a train into it? This has nothing to do with the topic. And what is your point with a train that's enclosed and two people walking towards each other? What does that got to do with anything?
Diversion. Little magic trick they use.
A magic trick to deny that we'll have any effect noticeable. He's saying, if you can't understand why flights on a rotating Earth are roughly equal, it's like, okay, Earth's supposed to be turning underneath them, though. So your elaborate explanation about how trains work with people walking towards them as they move along is irrelevant, because the claimed effect we have is us on a rotating platform turning beneath stuff that isn't, and how, because we're turning beneath it, it looks like it drifts. Absolutely sod all to do with you moving towards somebody on a roundabout, for example. So if there's two people on a roundabout and you walk towards the other person, who cares? The effect of Coriolis is you seeing a ball being thrown over the top of the roundabout, looking like it's curving. Or you standing underneath a tree, looking up and spinning around on the spot. It looks like the tree's moving. Yeah, looks like the tree's spinning. Actually, it's you spinning. That's Coriolis effect. So what you're going to now do is detail how the ants on the tree are moving towards each other. No. You spinning underneath the tree makes the tree look like it's moving when it isn't. That's Coriolis effect. But the ants are moving towards each other on the tree at the same rate. While it spins, the tree isn't moving. I'm moving to make it look like it's moving. The looking like it's moving is the Coriolis bit. I.e., you're on a roundabout, you're looking up at a tree, you spin, and you look like the tree branch is coming towards you. Now, if that tree branch was low enough, it could still smack you in the face. Yeah? Because you've spun towards it. Yeah? Likewise, if you launched a drone on a spinning Earth, it would whiz away from you, seemingly whizzing away because it's flying away, at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. Now, obviously, drones can't fly 1,000 miles an hour, but if Earth was turning, you'd be turning beneath it at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. And you'd definitely notice. Especially if it's smacked into you, if you were in the way. If you were somebody that happened to not be launching the drone, it whizzed away from the pilot and then happened to smack into anybody in the way because it's only a foot off the ground as Earth turns beneath it for you to observe Coriolis deflection. It's just hovering, but yet the ground is turning beneath it at a very, very fast rate of 1,000 miles an hour, claimed to be on the equator. Said nobody ever because we don't observe it. And then we get into this crap. Here's me explaining why we wouldn't expect to see drift. All right, if you can't understand why flight times on a rotating Earth are equal, well, shouldn't we have Earth turning beneath them?
That was my... Am I missing the point here that we're trying to explain why we're not seeing the Coriolis effect? And to explain that, we're giving an example with one reference frame.
Correct.
Also, false equivalence because they put you in a closed system. Is there supposed to be a closed system in their model?
Well, there's another thing too. He's probably going to sleep a little bit better because he got to beg the question of a sphere within his example too.
Similar to Dan, Simon Dan, when he sent me this via Twitter with the attached message, you and your reference frames are ruined. So he's showing this guy on a trampoline. This is Simon Dan, the idiot. Not drifting. Not deviating. Ergo, we've got one reference frame. Just the guy bouncing in between the breaks of the wind. The guy's not being forced off his path, seeming to drift. So Coriolis deflection would be if you took down the boards either side of this trampoline, and the moment he went into the air, the guys who are watching him see him bounce out in an arc. Yeah, so he's moved in a curved path away from the truck moving beneath him. Well, if the truck is moving beneath him and from the truck it looks like the guy curves away from the truck, well, that would be a not actual curving out of the path. It's him just going up and down, and as he moves up, the tractor moves from beneath him. So from his vantage point, he just goes up and then down. From the guy on the tractor's vantage point, he curves out of the back of this bed. Yeah, so it looks like he curves away. In reality, whatever spot he left when the tractor's pulled away from beneath him is where he lands. But from the guy who's moving away from him as he does it, it looks like he curves out the back of it. That's Coriolis effect. And it's claimed Earth has that effect, i.e. stuff curving away from you because you're turning beneath it. That's Coriolis effect. So because we don't experience that effect on a turning Earth, Dan's resolve as an anti-flat earther is to show me something not drifting. This is the idiot anti-flat Earth workaround when you don't have drift. Earth's supposed to have drift, we don't have it, so show examples of things not drifting at 15 degrees an hour. They're just thick. Simon Dan's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to that sort of stupidity. You and your reference frames are ruined. Number one, I don't have any reference frames. I don't need reference frames. Number two, you have reference frames. Two of them, Earth claimed to be one of them turning beneath stuff that's not attached. So what are you going to show me? Someone not drifting away from something as though they're attached as it moves with it? So no drift then. So you're debunking your own claim with your demonstration and telling me you haven't got two reference frames needed for your claim of Coriolis. Man, what a complete idiot. That's Simon Dan, by the way, if anyone doesn't realise the stupid idiot I'm talking about. His resolve for that is to ask me a maths question labelled physics question, also demonstrating how stupid he is.
Adam, can you repeat what you said?
With regards to that question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my understanding of it, he was fundamentally asking why we don't observe something that we should observe in a model and creating an excuse for that to justify why we don't see what we should see in his model. He cites an example which only involves a single reference frame.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
It almost seems as though it's like a form of gaslighting, making it seem like, oh, our argument the whole time was that we don't have reference frames. You guys. So we're going to put that on you and then show you how that's not happening when that's literally our claim. And then ask us where do we make that claim?
It's like a reverse. It's fucking weird. What the hell's going on right now?
Oh, it's born out of cognitive pain, though. Like I used to think that some of the people who came here and did this were like super intelligent because of the way that they could hop from one paradigm with drift and things drifting away at 15 degrees an hour, gyroscopes with Earths turning underneath them, pendulums with Earths turning beneath them, footballs with Earths turning beneath them to cause them to drift through goals, snipers having to lead their targets, to, okay, why don't we see any deviation when we watch an aeroplane then? Because an aeroplane's supposed to be exactly the same as anything else that's left Earth. In other words, we'd see it deviate at 15 degrees an hour. And they go to massive extents to tell us why we won't see things drift. Because the only examples they have with drift are either mechanical man-made gizmos or things that are only in the air for a second, like a football or a bullet. Gyroscope, yeah, man-made device. This isn't affecting my world. This isn't a natural phenomena. And you use an affirming the consequent form of logical fallacy to claim it proves Earth's spin. But your claim, in the form of the gyro or the pendulum, that Earth spins by example, comes with Earth turning underneath that pendulum, or turning underneath that gyro, and turning underneath the bullet, and turning underneath the anything else that they say does have drift is perfectly acceptable until we point out that it doesn't occur, and then they've got to give you a single reference frame of you walking on a train. It's like, no, the claim of Coriolis would be you sat on the train, waking up and looking at the platform that you sat at, and then suddenly the train starts moving. And in your moment of hazy waking up, you go, oh my God, that platform is moving. The earth, the cold ground is moving. And oh, no, it's me on the train moving. Just looked like the platform had gathered up some wheels and started rolling away from me. Because that would be the inertial reference frame. So it looked like the platform moved away from the train. It's actually the train moving away from the platform. The platform's concreted into the ground. But from your vantage point, it looks like it's got wheels, doesn't it? No, it hasn't. It's just a reference frame disorientation. I.e., things looking like they're drifting when they're not. Looking like they're curving out at the back of a flatbed truck with a trampoline because the trampoline moves underneath you. That's Coriolis. Oh, we don't see that on Earth? Well, I better spend 25 minutes explaining exactly why we don't see that effect, as we're supposed to prove we spin.
So
Wouldn't
you've given an
Coriolis be
example,
one of these
Nathan, there, haven't you?
forces that are not actual forces, which you can think of as a force?
Yeah, it's another not
Since
actual
they measure
force.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they measure it in newtons, don't they?
Not actual a force. If you turn underneath I'll get to you in a second, Adam, I'm really sorry. You're spinning underneath a tree. You look up at the tree branch above you. It's not moving. Then you start twirling underneath the tree. Well, the tree and its movement, yeah, that's what Coriolis is. Is the tree actually moving as you spin underneath it? No. Does the tree have to account for you spinning underneath it? No, it doesn't. No, because it's not actually doing anything. It just looks like it is. Now, what happens if there's a low branch and as you twirl into the branch by direct consequence, i.e. you put your hands out to your side and when you turn 90 degrees, one of your hands hits one of the branches. Is that an actual effect of you smacking into the branch? Yes. But did the tree branch smack you or did you smack the tree branch? You smacked the tree branch because you turned underneath it. So not actual force causes you to hit a tree branch. But for the fact that you're turning underneath it, that wouldn't have happened. So for this to happen, and it's an effect that you can observe, it's apparent, the tree looks like it's moving, until I smack into a branch, and then it's a very real effect that you've experienced, but only because you're spinning beneath it. So for this to be an Earth-based effect, you've got to be spinning beneath things, not attached to their reference frame. That's the effect and how it works. Anyway, Adam, go ahead.
Just to say, the way you summarise that, you can start to think of ways in which a train and stuff could elicit sort of those Coriolis effects. But that's you filling in the gaps for them. What he specifically does is remove the reference frame and just keep both people on the train. So literally it's the distance between A and B and they're walking to each other. It's like sticking them on the roundabout and one at one end and one at the other, and they meet in the middle, irrespective of, It doesn't matter whether the roundabout's spinning or not with regards to a second reference frame if all you're going to discuss is the one reference frame that the two people are in. The only other way is to levitate. Yeah, is to actually, you know what I mean? Is to generate that second reference frame, but they're not doing that. It's specifically only allowing one reference frame. To make the example.
I was thinking of an escalator as a kid. When you go to the escalator at the bottom, the one that's coming down at you, and you're walking against the direction of the escalator, which is coming down at you, you're really not making that much progress. Whereas the guy on top just stands on it and he's coming at you. He has no effort. So there's something moving and I'm going a different direction. So to me, the whole thing is somewhat ridiculous. Like Adam said, he's only using one reference frame. Yeah. And the plane, gone.
If you go with the escalator scenario, then it's like a person at the top and a person at the bottom, and one's walking up and one's walking down. Yeah, just taking the steps to the point where they meet. Yeah, so, but that's actually more complicated than what he's suggesting, because the relationship between A and B is static all the way in his model. It doesn't change. The thing that's moving to create a second reference frame is removed because he keeps everything inside the train. So what the train's doing is irrelevant because they're both in the same reference frame.
Right, exactly. But what I was using the escalator argument for is that they're saying that we should have 15 degrees drift. Okay, well, if you leave the Earth's surface, the one reference frame, now you're in the second reference frame. That's what I'm trying to tie it to. Well, guess what? We don't see it.
That's the okie doke, huh? That's like our favorite citation, Thought.co. It goes through great detail in telling you how the Coriolis is an illusion, right? And then what do they tell you later on? Oh yeah, this illusion also causes hurricanes. Like, you started this off by saying it's an illusion. How do you now say that this illusion causes actual rotation of wind? How does that work? It's a bit of a problem.
I'm going to give one more try at your escalator example, and I'm going to try and inject a bit of drama into it too, and this chocolate will be able to relate to. You know, in an airport where you've got a travelator, and it goes, let's say it's a really significant distance, right, past a load of gates, and you just stand on the travelator, it takes you from one end to the other. Now, as a airport staff member, you can stand, let's say, halfway along this travelator, next to a sign that dangles over the top of the travelator, and it's a sign that is 6'10" above the ground. Yeah, and the sign says Gate 5 that way. Now, as you're standing, you're not on the travelator, you're just looking at the sign. Yeah, you're just having your lunch, sat on a bench at Gate 7, looking at the sign, and the sign is not doing anything. It's just completely static. It's never going to do anything. It's just a sign. It sits above the travelator telling you which way to get to Gate 9. Anyway, so you look at it, and as you look at it, if you ignore all the airport noises, there's just basically silence. There's nothing going on. But then, at the other end of the travelator, a 7-foot man gets on. And as he approaches, the dramatic music starts. Dun, dun, dun! Because the sign is coming to get him, isn't it? And with every second that passes, that sign's getting ever closer to physically assaulting this 7-foot man. Brutally and aggressively. Yeah? And as he travels towards it, he's thinking, this thing's coming to get me. And from the camera viewpoint, from the first-person shot of the 7-foot man, he just sees the sign, with perspective, getting bigger and bigger and bigger and coming to get him! This evil sign's coming to get him! From your vantage point, looking at this sign, though, Chocolate, it's not moving. It's not doing anything. Yeah? It looks like it's coming towards you. And eventually, when the 7-foot guy meets that sign that isn't moving an inch, he does in fact hit it and crack his head and go, ouch. And then the dramatic music ends. So then what he does is he fills out a report and makes it plainly clear to the airport This sign clearly came towards me and then attacked me. And the airport staff say, no, it's a not actual effect that you saw. Yeah, it was actually you moving towards it. It wasn't coming to get you. It's completely benign. It's not in any way making attempts on your life, Mr. Tallman. Yeah, that's Coriolis effect. You moving towards the sign, it getting bigger and bigger and bigger and coming towards you and eventually hitting you is a not actual deflection of the sign. It appeared to come towards you. It did actually come towards you because you were moving underneath it. Now let's take that example and transpose it onto Earth. Well, you could have some kid launch a drone off the ground and have it hover. A lot like the sign isn't attached to the travelator, the drone is now not attached to Earth. And it's going to whiz away to the tune of whatever rate the ground is turning beneath it once it leaves the ground. And it's going to hurtle towards anybody standing on the metaphorical equivalent of the travelator. That would be a claim to be turning Earth. So you're standing having your lunch, effectively on a travelator. And the hovering drone, which isn't attached to the travelator, it's just hovering, it's minding its own business, is suddenly coming towards you at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. Because you're blissfully eating your lunch on a travelator without realising it. So stuff's going to smack into you, isn't it? Stuff not attached, like drones. Said nobody ever, because Earth isn't a travelator by equivalent. We're not moving towards anything that's not attached. That never happens ever. And that's the claim that we have to prove we spin. I.e., Earth as a travelator moves underneath a football when it's kicked from the travelator. So you keep moving along the travelator as you watch the ball go through the goal, said Neil deGrasse Tyson, a claim that Earth turned underneath a football. Well, that's Earth as a travelator turning under something that's not attached. But that doesn't happen, otherwise you'd have a very serious problem with your day-to-day living. Because things that weren't attached, like insects and birds, would suddenly be turning towards you at the rate Earth turned underneath them. So pointing this out necessitates an anti-flat earther to start obfuscating away from the claim that Earth actually has, which is Earth turns underneath stuff, Coriolis effect, to tell us examples with one reference frame that don't exhibit the effect. Because Earth doesn't exhibit the effect, and they've got to explain why Earth doesn't exhibit this effect of Coriolis drift as we turn beneath stuff on an Earth that's a travelator, smacking into things constantly as we turn beneath them. We don't, because we're not, and they know we're not, and they have to explain why we're not, when we're supposed to be. We're supposed to have drift, we're supposed to be turning beneath stuff, we don't, so anti-flat earthers will tell us why we're not drifting. Yeah, well, that's just because we're not turning.
Wait a second. Neil deGrasse Tyson, when that football was kicked, Nathan, he did do a quick calculation. No, don't leave that out.
Yeah, the ball just drifted because it's a football with a funny shape, unlike British footballs. But that funny shape made it curve through the goal. And they just ascribed that curve to Earth turning beneath it. That's Coriolis effect, the actual globe claim. Now, that's Earth turning beneath the football, so we say, why don't we have Earth turning beneath aeroplanes? They've left the ground, they're not attached anymore. And we're supposed to see them drift, that's what Coriolis is. No, now let me explain why we're not going to see Coriolis drift at 15 degrees an hour. We don't observe it, said every flat earther who's ever come across the Coriolis argument.
Are you telling me Neil deGrasse Tyson is wrong? Because we went to the moon because they calculated the amount of fuel, Nathan. Come on, this guy's a calculator.
Calculating into existence a drift would mean that things drifted because Earth turned beneath them. So if Earth turns beneath the ball, as to make it go through the goal, to make a goal, then it would turn underneath the blimp film in the game because it's not attached to Earth. Now, for every fundy out there going, no, the blimp's got engines, it moves with the Earth. Hello? We're supposed to see it drift from the ground. Nothing to do with the actual trajectory of the blimp, which is just hovering. The trajectory's irrelevant. I'm going to be seeing it drifting, not because it moves like the sign over the travelator. The blimp just hovers. Doesn't have to do anything. But because I'm on a travelator, I'm going to see it move away from the stadium now, aren't I? Said nobody ever, because it doesn't happen. Roll on the fundy telling you why we won't see drift. Or roll on Simon Dan showing me an example without any drift. So Okay, Simon Dan, we've got one reference frame then. So no 15 degrees an hour. This is an example of a man not drifting away from the trampoline at 15 degrees an hour. He's not drifting. Globe claims we have drift to prove we spin. But you're going to give me an example of how we don't. So you're debunking Earth spin. Simple as that.
To your point earlier, being that I worked at the airport for almost 10 years, I would definitely get blamed by Mr. Tallman if he hit himself on the travelator sign, because people tend to act like that at an airport. I would definitely get blamed just working there. People are crazy.
Well, you can't
People,
blame them.
I tend,
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Brian.
people tend to have a lot of baggage when they're at the airport.
That's the new word of the day, travelator.
It was coming right for me. The sign cemented into the ceiling. It was coming right for me.
You know,
So-
if that guy would have been an anti-travelator, he would have explained to Chocolate how the train example works and how it was his fault.
I think from the guy 7-foot guy's reference frame, if he had got his mobile phone out, filmed to show that he wasn't moving, look, his feet were static on the floor, the ground was solid, and just panned up, and all he did was see this little shot of this sign heading towards him, panned that down, demonstrated in a court of law that his feet weren't moving. It wasn't him that was running to the sign.
Exactly. Any lawyer would fight that for him. The sign was clearly the aggressor in that circumstance. It was coming right for him.
But filmed from that reference frame, he wasn't moving, was he?
No, the sign was coming right for him. It kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it viciously assaulted him.
Meanwhile, here I am at the gate watching this dumbass.
Exactly, Chocolate. And you can bear witness, the sign didn't move an inch.
There's the guy's original claim about flights east going east and west and east, and why the Earth is not rotating underneath him, and he's trying to come up with basically excuses, basically is all you could call it. Well, it really doesn't matter, because the chord line of the wings of an airplane cannot go below horizontal without the airplane losing lift. So that's why the Earth is not rotating underneath the airplane, because airplanes cannot fly around a rotating globe. So that's the end of that.
Is that Brian? You
It's
okay,
Brian.
Brian? You don't sound like yourself.
My throat is a bit hoarse, that's all.
Yes, they do eat quite
Don't
a lot
feel
of horse
bad,
in
bud.
Ireland, so you'll get that.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, I mean, they like to beg the question and talk about airplanes doing this and that and everything on a globe. Airplanes don't work on a globe. So if airplanes work, it's like if airplanes work, it's not a globe. Airplanes work, so it's not a globe. If A then B, A therefore B. You know, it's very simple.
Modus ponens, indeed. If A then B,
Oh,
A
section.
therefore B.
What globe? Need a globe first before planes can work on one.
So every example they give us negates drift. So without drift, the claim of Earth rotation is debunked.
Yeah, that's true. The only assertion that we have that's claimed by the globe side to prove we are spinning is Coriolis. Now, it doesn't matter if you're asserting it with celestial objects, or bullets, or balls, or gyros, or pendulums. That's a claim Earth turns beneath. As soon as you point out that if we're not observing that drift, if it's not in observation, we don't need an explanation for why we don't see it. We need a concession that we don't see it. You claim we do, as a globe believer. And now we've pointed out that we don't see it. You're going to explain why we don't see the very proof you said proves we spin. Yeah, that's just the end of the argument, 10th, right? Shout out to Unitox Femu. Says, to get Coriolis, you need something to rotate. Yeah.
Okay, so when did this all get started? When did they start trying to measure Earth's movement? They brought this heliocentric nonsense in. So now inquisitive people start to try to figure out how the Earth is moving. So they come up with a pendulum. What
Yeah,
was the first thing they came up with to try and test Earth's movement?
Well, you're describing what Foucault did with his pendulum and gyro.
I don't know. I'm asking a question. When did they start trying to do this?
Don't know when
Pointed at the sky.
I don't know the exact date of when that assumption was made, and as I've said to you yesterday, there's a lot of discussion and debate, which is why I'm hesitant, about the claim to be history of this particular lie, Neil. So while I might be able to dig out the date of Foucault, I think it's Leon Foucault, if you want to look it up yourself, but that doesn't really mean much.
1851.
Exactly. We don't even know
There you
if the time is right. How do we
1851.
know anything?
1851 for Foucault in this regard with pendulums and gyros.
I'll take a stab at it. When it was geocentric, no one was thinking that. When it became heliocentric, the Earth is now moving around the sun. When it was geocentric, the sun had a circuit over the Earth. So it would have to have started back then and evolved to whatever it is today.
Evolved. What does that mean, evolved?
The arguments back then weren't as concise as they are today. They weren't asking the questions we are. And so it was in its infancy. So it's evolved to this point. That's what I mean.
It's quite a claim that isn't supported, but I'll just quickly read it if that's all right. Foucault pendulum. A Foucault pendulum is a simple device named after French physicist Leon Foucault and conceived as an experiment to demonstrate the Earth's rotation. The pendulum was introduced in 1851 and was the first experiment to give simple, direct evidence of the Earth's rotation. Very bold claim.
But that's not true.
No, it's
Well,
not.
wasn't
Saying
the
it's
Foucault-
true. I'm saying it's a bold claim that they make. They are quite categorically stating that once you stick that pendulum up, the reason you see drift is because the Earth is rotating underneath. That's their claim.
Yes, my point is, where was the Adam Meekins in 1851? Where was the quantum erasers in 1851? There was nobody there.
They were called Gleason. Yeah, parallax. There were plenty of people opposing this logically. Yeah.
That's beautiful snort at the end of that statement. Indeed, there's been people
That's
opposing it, and in recent history too. So I don't know if they're still available, if they're on his older channel, but Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole had various different video footage clips from the 70s and 60s of people opposing it. Also, news clippings. Did you want to add something? Who's that? The Hammer?
I was going to say that's an argument to silence fallacy.
Hold on one sec. The Hammer, did you want to add something? Hello? The Hammer 124. Clearly not.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Sky?
Hey, what's up, Nathan? Sorry, hold on one second. I'm just walking outside.
Oh,
Hey, thanks for talking to me. What's up, man?
Sky?
I just want to say I really appreciate your guys' show, man. I enjoy watching it all the time. This is the first time I've been up in the Discord, but I really enjoy it.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure listening. I appreciate all your hard work. And to see the kind of like you guys were just talking about, the evolution of the argument and just how far it's come and just where the globe side is really sitting right now. It's pretty awesome.
Cool. Thank you.
Can we say progression instead of evolution?
Yeah, progression. We don't know the history of the heliocentric deception beyond what that's been published. Now, if you want a concise account of what's been documented, then I've said it before, check out my video with Johnny Cerrucci, where it takes it all the way back to Rome.
How come Neil is always trying to be a word police here? He got rid of the word Spaniard. Now he wants to get rid of the word of evolving or evolution.
Because Capo Flake is not a Spaniard.
What do you mean? He said he was a Spaniard. Why would you say he's not a Spaniard if he is a Spaniard?
He's not the Spaniard like Russell Crowe was the Spaniard.
Not
Russell Crowe's
the.
not a Spaniard.
Hold on. Not the Spaniard. Doesn't make
He
him
was in the
not a
movie.
Spaniard.
So it was a fictitious Spaniard. You'd rather go with that than a real Spaniard.
With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you first and foremost to all of you watching live for smashing the super chat. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Another massive thank you to Discord and G+ for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley once again. Stay tuned if you're watching on either Programming stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day! I'm gonna get ran over, things like that started happening.
That's
I
called.
go to autos. Listen, I go into AutoZone to get a headlight, and the guy happens to be originally from Brooklyn. So we're talking as he's putting in my headlight, and I bring up flat Earth, and he gets mad. He's like, with this conspiracy nonsense and this flat Earth stuff, I've been stargazing since I'm a kid, and he goes into this whole stargazing nonsense and tells me if you take a ball and you put it in water and you spin that ball, it's all physics. And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? So anyway, if you're listening, because I did tell him, YouTube, Nathan Oakley, 1980, Flat Earth Debate, pop on. If you're listening, Mr. Guy from Brooklyn, you know who I am, and come on and defend this globe of yours.
One time I was coming back to the airport, taking an Uber, and the Uber driver decided to tell me about his weekend and how nice it was, and he went to the lake and told me how beautiful and flat the water was, right? And I didn't start anything. I just I was just sitting there, and he starts with this whole story of how beautiful it is and it's flat and all that. Just you could see forever. And I was just like, I'll just throw it in. It's because it's flat, right? And he didn't understand what I meant, at first, until I told him. I was like, yeah, it's because water, it's not bending. It's just flat. It's just exactly the way you just described it, right? And then he realized what I was talking about, and he was like, but no, that's not what I meant. I was like, so when you said it was flat, you didn't mean it was flat? I was like, yeah, but no. And for the next 5 minutes, it was like that. It was like a back and forth of, yeah, but no, but yeah. Because, yeah, it looks flat, but it's not flat. But I said, but you just told me it's flat. Matter of fact, you just told me how far away you could see. It's like this cognitive break that people get as soon as that topic comes up. It's like, I could sit here and describe it flat all day, but as soon as you agree with me, now I have to be like, nah, what I meant was something else. It's really crazy, man.
You've just beautifully described cognitive dissonance. The yeah, but no, but yeah, but no, but yeah, but no, but yeah, but no, but...
Yeah, I was in the back of the cab just laughing like, oh my God. He volunteered to tell me how beautiful and flat and forever I could see over the water, and I was fishing and everything's great. All I said was, yeah, it's because it's flat. It's not curving anywhere. Oh, but no. But it's not that. It can't be that. But you just told me it's that. But that's not what I meant. Oh, so you didn't mean that it was flat when you just said it was flat? It
What
was
he meant
like
to
that.
say.
And I just want to get to my destination. So yeah, I'll just leave you with that. Maybe you should look into it a little bit. But
He meant to
you
say,
just told me what you told me. So,
look how
yeah, I'm done.
beautifully 8 inches per mile squared this lake is. That's what he actually meant to say, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Well, what struck me with the guy in AutoZone was how angry he got. I mean, he really got angry, but he did say, he goes, listen, I'm an avid YouTuber. So what is the name of it? And I said it like 3 times, maybe even a 4th time. Nathan Oakley, 1980. So hopefully he's listening. Hopefully he'll pop on, and hopefully we can educate him. I couldn't do it in that like 60-second
If he happens to have just tuned
encounter.
in, he happens to be listening right now. Neil was slagging you off earlier, like really badly. You want to get him?
Well, it's just funny how, I mean, that's North Carolina, and he knew exactly about flat Earth and what's going on. So our numbers are growing. I think it's bigger than what we think it is.
Sorry, what are you talking about now? Whose numbers are what now?
Well, let's just say the debate is increasing. It's progressing. Come on, I wasn't expecting a guy in North Carolina to even know about flat Earth. He know and he heard, and he called us conspiracy theorists.
Ours, Nathan. You, me, our little community, Nathan.
Our numbers. I don't know. My subscribers are growing, but that's only because I've had lots of generous other YouTubers. And by generous other YouTubers, I mean YouTubers I spent a prolonged period badgering to make me an advert. Make me an advert. So that's why I've grown recently.
Can I shout out Dave Weiss for a second time today, as you shouted him out the first time? You know, I've been watching his interviews, and they're really interesting because I can finally see more of like, it's almost like the algorithm is is getting relaxed on us. You know, like as if flat Earth is not, or flat Earth debunking isn't popular. So you can begin to see how naturally we're still here. And when people say the numbers aren't growing, I find it interesting because there's this guy that has a podcast that's a rapper. His name is Killer Priest. And he had 4,000 comments. Not only that, but he was very elated that this conversation about flat Earth had his numbers higher than they had ever been since he'd been podcasting. But not only that, 4,000 comments, and I could scroll down for as long as I could, and they were all positive for the flat Earth.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And this is a mainstream, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
Well, this is my point, Eli. This is my point.
Okay, so DITRH actually pointed this out to me. So I was chatting away with him yesterday, and he asked me to do a specific search. So he says, go to YouTube, type in flat Earth, and just do search by date uploaded. And I thought, I know this will end. I've done this so many times. This is just going to end with endless reams of anti-flat Earth material. I did it, and it was completely populated with flat Earth, sun, moon, and zodiac clock app uploads. Now, it seemed obvious that Earth has taken a load of uploads that he's had stockpiled from maybe a channel that was shut down or something like that, and just done them in bulk, maybe spent an entire day just doing that. But they all appeared. I'm like, what the hell's going on? That's now the 3rd time somebody's pointed out to me that we're seemingly no longer under the cosh. Our materials reaching people, appearing when you search for it. This seems very strange. So there's been several people pointing that out. I've had several people send me screenshots of examples of this as well. So yeah, it all seems very positive. The other thing I will mention, I'll just read out what Hutchley put in this Skype message to me. He put, I'm doing a debate with Eddie Bravo today with this Professor Globas. He says he doesn't buy the curvature formula. What would you say to that? And then he asks me a few other questions. Do you want to hear my response, or is that enough for me to just point out what David Weiss is doing with Eddie Bravo?
No, we need your response.
My response was...
Repeat the question again. He said that the guy he's interviewing doesn't buy the curve formula?
Yeah.
Welcome to Flat Earth.
But that's a Glober, right?
Well, no, when you hear the rest, you'll get the context. I know it's only good for 1,000 miles or two, but don't we need it for more than that? Would love to hear your answer. My response: the curve formula requires R. We debunked R with the black swan. To get R, you need a geometric sphere edge horizon, open brackets C. Al-Biruni. Without it, the entire model dies. The curve maths are based on R. I sent him a couple of diagrams, one of Al-Biruni's derivation of R measurement, and then I put C, which is the derivation of R position in the Al-Biruni diagram I've got, is the geometric horizon needed to get R, open brackets, basically for everything globe. We debunked R, so bye-bye, hand wave. Speed of light, based on R. Earth curve geometry, based on R. Distance to sun and all celestial objects, all based on R. Gravity, based on R. Axial rotation, based on R. I could go on. It all needs R. We debunked R. And then I put at the end, whispers, black swan. There you go. That was my
It's
message
about
to
time.
Dave.
Hold on. It's about time we're shouting out the boss.
You dearth, we've been consistently shouting out the boss. What are you talking about? You might have forgotten about him. I don't forget who cuts my checks.
Hey, I love the boss. The boss turned me on to this show.
Well, I like well, Neil. I'm not even gonna. Well, we'll talk about it later. But I will say that I've really been enjoying his interviews and his ability to get in front of more and more of the people that are into the mainstream thinking. It's really fun. I would also like to be a part of that conversation.
There was only one time I was against him, and that was when I really wanted Nathan to speak to Owen Benjamin. But, it turned out the way it did.
You're telling me you're heartbroken that Owen Benjamin didn't speak to me, he spoke to Dearth? You kidding?
Yeah, I'd rather than speak to you. I wanted you to get that shot.
Nah. I mean, I did actually offer, because he put it out there, right? He said at one stage, look, if there's any flat earthers that want to talk. So I sent him an email, and I'm like, yeah, I know my stuff, I'll talk to you if you want. But by the same token, Dearth was being really chummy and sending him money at the time. I'm not saying he bribed him, but I'm just saying, he was supporting him with super chats. That's a much better way of putting it. And even after the fact, so after Owen Benjamin lost his YouTube channel for Jew bashing the small hats, he then had no ability to earn money from YouTube, and he was only receiving what he called manual super chats, which meant that your supporter, in this case David Weiss, would have to go to quite some extent to support him. In other words, actually physically post to a PO box cash, which is risky in itself, and it requires somebody to actually say, yeah, I really, really want to support you. Now, did I give Owen Benjamin 1 cent? No. Did I? Hell, I probably gave him some grief in his comments a couple of times for things I said he got wrong. So I think he was better off going with Dearth, given that I'd have probably ended up in a row with him about some fundy belief he held at the time. Not the case now, but back then, certainly.
Well, if your name would have been Nathan Weissman, you would have got the call.
What? Let me get this straight. You're saying that because David Weiss is Jewish, somebody who was removed from YouTube for anti-Jewish material, this is so nonsensical. I've never heard anything so stupid. What are you trying to imply?
No, it makes perfect sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
Perfect sense. Let me get the Jew boy on.
Oh God, is this going to turn into a Jew? You do realise I'm 16% Jewish. Careful with your words.
I thought you said wise man, like a wise man.
I did, Tent, but he didn't get it. So, leave Nathan alone.
Shalom.
Hey, can we get back to Dave Weiss being the boss of this show, because my paycheck was wrong, and I don't know who I need to talk to about that.
Yeah, I did tell
at
you.
least you get a paycheck.
Did your
I told
paycheck
you not to
say
mention it on the
chocolate
show.
on it? Because
That is a behind-the-scenes administration issue. Yeah, and I did speak to you about it.
Pick it up with human resources, please, John.
That's disciplinary, that is, right? Mentioning it on a show. You know that.
See, now, I love, man, I got to get equipment. Like, he has the green screen, he has all his files together, like everything is always right there, perfect, ready to go to illustrate a point that he wants to make. Again, I can't believe, like, you know how we're in these circles and you see the same people commenting, like, it's outside of that, just other places where Dave happens to pop up. The commenters are for the information that he's sharing. And I can't believe that the majority is going towards, I want to look into this more. Like, I can't believe
You know, Eli, you seen talk about, since we're talking about rappers, you seen Lord Jamar. He's had a couple of, and now to be honest, he's not one of my favorite rappers. I actually don't really like the guy too much, but that's not what this is about. He's actually pretty on point when it comes to some of this shit. So I think that would even be more interesting because he's actually in agreement. So like it would be interesting because I've seen specials with him and Rod Digger, and Rod Digger's trying to understand it, but you know she's so brand new in it, she doesn't get it. But yeah, man, the rappers are starting to, well, some of them they're starting to pick up on it. And
I thought they would
Priest,
pick up on it quicker. They were a little slow.
yeah. Yeah, but a lot of those guys, you know, they've got people that they've got to answer to, you know. It's not very, I don't think a lot of them have the leniency to just say what they want, you know, like some athletes and shit, you know. So,
Not all rappers
but I
are the
think that would
same.
be cool.
Adam is presenting. What is that?
I was going to ask you to do that, but I just want to say, like, I do take slight offence to that. I am 44% rapper. Adam,
Just
See,
waiting
now
for you to
you're,
drop
now
the
you're
bars,
starting to
baby.
sound like Kosho. You're a little bit of everything. I'm on to you now.
I've been tracking all the percentages of Nathan. He's currently at 185% of something.
Isn't he a percentage black woman too? Like,
don't oppress me. Adam, you're presenting.
I try not to.
Eli. Eli was sending us some pictures in the week as he's been.
It's even worse. But go ahead.
Well, you just say what you're doing and what you'd spotted and that, and then I'll just quickly cover what I did with the Gleason's map, which I thought was quite nice because you're spotting this, aren't you? And we found a bit of research which talked about the orientation of the streets in Manhattan, which helped. So yeah, if you just explain what you're doing, and then I'll explain that Gleason's map. I drew some lines on for you.
So, I mean, you know, I'm always looking at the sky, and I was looking at the sunset because, you know, there are certain parts of the year where the sun, you can see it like directly in between the tall buildings. And, you know, originally I thought, well, you know, these streets are almost damn near perfectly east and west, north and south, right? But Adam points out that, well, no, it's not. It's a little off kilter. So I took out my compass, I went back to the location, and I got the heading for that direction, and it's northwest. But the thing that was like bothering me, I was wondering why I was watching the sun go from left to right, so basically horizontal, in a very short amount of time. I didn't know why it was moving that many degrees to the north. So,
because that's what it does.
That's what I mean.
Because that's what it does. Does it here? Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course.
Moves off towards the north as you watch it set, and you're like, yeah, it moves in a vector shape, right?
Yeah.
So it's not.
What I've done,
moving...
Nathan, to describe that is I took the Gleason's map and on there drew a line from the centre just to the equator and going through New York so that I could define what north is in New York on this. Then what I did, I asked Eli what time of day it was when he took the picture. You're like this, 10th. Reason being, what I wanted to do was calculate the ground position of the sun. And the Gleason's map makes it very simple. And New York sat very nicely on the time. It sits 1/3, 5 degrees in, which means it's 20 past, because this is a big clock. And so it was like 8 hours or so. So I defined where the sun's GP, ground position, would be, put it there. And then from that, I've then just drawn a line from New York to the sun. And then if we expand that a bit, basically it defines the angle, which basically came out at northwest, which I found very interesting when we look at your images you were taking, coming out pretty much spot on. So your observations match with the Gleason's in terms of what the sun's doing. And with regards to what you were saying there, it's movement. If you think about what's happening, Eli, in terms of what you're observing, and this last bit, from where you are, look, the sun's moving here, along this bit here. So you are going to observe it from your position, doing exactly what you observe, which is it moving that way, look.
So now this is an area that I really wish we talked about more, and that's maps, because also Dave Weiss talks about flight plans and how emergency flights land in places that don't make sense. And I've heard you talk about maps just being projections of the globe, and I kind of don't understand what you mean.
Okay. I mean, this is something that got covered really early on, and Adam was there at the time, as was Martin and a few other people, while we got really heavily into maps. Now, just to pinpoint this, if you weren't along us in our timeline, it's about the time that Tiger Dan 925 was putting together his own version of what ended up being an azimuthal equidistant projection to plot out flight times, only to find that they don't work because on this map that's on screen now, I don't know if you can zoom out a little bit, Adam, so we can see a bit more of the map. This is an azimuthal equidistant projection. So in terms of its accuracy for the distances, anything from the center point, which for this one, this is a North Pole centric azimuthal equidistant projection. Any distance that's measured from that center point, where it's projected from, to anything on the outside edge is going to be an accurate distance measurement. So if you can just zoom back into the North Pole, please, Adam. So where we've got lines measured outwards to Adam's compass, that's going to be accurate. The red, I don't know if it is red, the dark line on that triangle isn't. That's not how the map functions. Now, you've got to bear in mind that this is not a flat Earth map. The azimuthal equidistant projection is a globe projection. So you've taken flat measurements, transposed them onto a sphere, and then transposed them back onto this flat projection. So it is, and labelled so, a globe projection, an azimuthal equidistant globe projection. And it doesn't work unless you're working from centre out. That's where it's accurate. You can project it from anywhere. That's the last point I'll add. So this isn't a unique projection. You can actually project from anywhere. You can have it South Pole centric if you wanted to, and still project it out with the same accuracy in terms of from the centre to any point going to the outside edge. Anything you want to add to that, Adam?
Yeah, just what's nice about this is that it's it does what it says on the tin. It's a longitude and time calculator. So the visual representation, the map, as you're saying, is kind of irrelevant. It's not representing the geography of the land masses, but what it is doing through this projection is it allows calculation of time. Yeah, as you see, that it was very easy for me to figure out the GP of the sun using this, knowing what time it was, and it was sunset. Yeah, so I knew it was sunset here, and I knew the time here, so I knew exactly where the sun was, and that's what this is, as described, a longitude and time calculator. It's not a map of the world.
And it's very good for doing just that. So we used this to do sun tracking, 4 years ago, Adam? Something like that. Anyway, and it is very good. You can just get a similar representation, but with I think a Gall Peters square map from timeanddate.com. Now, after actually tracking the sun, it isn't as accurate as you might think. So where we had the equinox predicted by time and date to be in certain places, it wasn't. It was out by an hour. I think it was either 2 or 3 occasions. It's so long ago, I can't remember. But there were several instances where it did not match. The sun wasn't in the place it was supposed to be based on the time and date that it was supposed to be. Having got eyes on it, i.e. phone actually showing it. The one instance that stuck in my mind the most was challenged because there was a glober on the panel at the time. And that challenge came in the form of, no, the sun isn't directly overhead. And the woman picked up a plant pot and showed the shadow was directly beneath. So the equinox sun tracking had some really interesting results, mainly because we asked for an extra additional piece of information, not just sunrise and sunset, but solar noon. And then you could figure out whether or not it was accurate in terms of what they said with the, I don't think it is the Gall Peters. What's the flat square map that they use on the time and date? Can you remember? Anybody? Doesn't matter if you don't.
Mercator.
Could be the Mercator. I can't remember which one they use. Anyway, it was out.
Gall Peters is the stretched landmass size one, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought that's the one they used, the one with the more accurate depictions of the land masses. It could be wrong. It could be. It doesn't really matter. I'm just saying it's not the same depiction as this, but you've got longitude and latitude lines laid out, and you can do similar things with it, and that's how they do it with the wave of the movement of the sun that they depict on time and date. Whereas this is much more easy. In fact, the original version of this had a ruler stretched out from the center. That's how it was used. It was used as a tool, in other words.
So, talking about like flight plans, what would you say about that? Like, would that be like talking points that someone like me would want to pick up to discuss with people using this kind of map, or
no?
Or what?
It's not designed to do that. So no. Number one, it's a globe projection. So it's normally held up in false dichotomy by globe believers, and you're just entering into a false dichotomy argument when you use maps like this. Now, that's not to say that they're not useful. I've utilized them, but you have to understand what they are and where their limitations lie and where the deception lies. This is the very heart of the deception, right? The land, how it's laid out. This is the heart of it. So what's the result? There's thousands, if not tens of thousands of representations, to the point where there's a methodology of plotting this out where I can make an equidistant projection from anywhere I like. Yeah? Who is it? There's a famous person that actually invented this methodology of doing the azimuthal projection. Who is it that... It's not the namesake on the map. I can't remember who it is. It's somebody that's got a prevalent namesake, and I just can't remember who it is that devised this methodology of doing these types of projections. But they're all globe projections. So you've got to understand how... If Brian's still around... No, he's not. If Brian was around, he would explain to you exactly how they've done the transposition from flat with Cartesian coordinates onto globe claims with datums that end up being flat in use. That's the bait and switch swindle. That's where all the deception lies. They're lying to us about the very nature of the land. And what shows us the land? Well, the maps. So it's riddled, absolutely riddled. I don't get into it. This certainly isn't capable of showing flights. And even if it was, the flights themselves are locked down and decided upon by people who are not us.
Are you saying, Nathan, that this map is not to scale? That it's not a perfect Euclidean representation of the realm?
No, it isn't.
Oh! Who could have foreseen that?
I would say by observations, it doesn't seem like they have a model that predicts. Don't they have a model that accurately predicts stuff? Isn't that what we've been told for, I don't know, 5-6 years? All of a sudden, that's a problem, huh?
Have they actually showed us a specific map with the flight paths on? Because from memory, when this was being debated about 4 or 5 years ago, what they'd actually do is they'd show how their straw man flat earth representation like this didn't work, even though it's a globe projection. And then they'd show it on something like Google Earth with all its varying scales. I only remember it because it was one of the very, very first videos I made about a baby being delivered en route to somewhere, and they had to divert, and it seemed to work beautifully on a flat Earth projection, which I thought this was. It's not. But yeah,
the
it's one of those-
diversion to Alaska, wasn't it, or something?
something like that.
Yeah.
That was way back.
Yeah. But that was, like
So-
I say, that me falling victim to the flat Earth straw man false dichotomy, where they hold up a globe projection as being our model and show us how it doesn't work. It's like, when have they showed us the map that works perfectly? Well, even if they have, again, it's back to the flights. Do we know the path that they've actually plotted out? No. Based on these crazy maps. Anyway, who was it that wanted to pipe up? Sorry.
According to them, they don't have a map that works perfectly, right? There's a channel named Mapmen. Now, I'm not saying that they're the all and all be all. There's a channel named Mapmen who that they literally have a video that's called "There is no accurate map of the Earth," and we're talking about globers here. We're not talking about flatties.
Exactly.
Yeah, but maps take us where we gotta go.
Yeah, in the small scale they
Okay.
do.
Nobody asked if the maps take us where we want to go.
Right,
Asked
right.
if it's a snapshot of the ground.
But I'm saying, even on their own side, I mean, I would go dig up the video right now. It's like, it's kind of funny to hear, oh, you guys don't have accurate models and accurate this, accurate that. Yeah, 2 seconds, and I can find a video for you guys on your side that say you don't have one accurate map of this Earth or your globe.
Not in globe form or in paper form, 2D
No.
form. So
Matter of fact, let me go
it's
find it.
crazy.
Give me a second.
Yeah, exactly. When they hold up a globe projection and say it doesn't work because I'm going to ascribe this to you as a flat Earth straw man, they're essentially saying this map doesn't work. It's like, well, where's the map that does? Well, I'll show you how it works on this globe projection that's not actually a map at all. It's Google Earth. That later gets completely disavowed as being claimed to be, or in any way, shape or form, a globe model. Google Earth's not our model. That's what we were told after the end of the Isle of Man. In fact, we had to fight tooth and nail because Anthony had got some of the heights from Google Earth, and that was totally unacceptable. Only for 3 years later then to do exactly the same thing with the black pooled swan. Very amusing stuff.
Oh, just to correct myself, the name of the video is "Why Every World Map is Wrong." I'll post it in has to be.
Perfect. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley. You can also get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, link below this video. See you all in the next one.